Homage to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. Today's question is, when we contemplate birth and then aging, you mentioned that the link between the two is important, and meditating on this is like a test. Please, can you explain this further? To answer this question, we go back to the paticca-samuppada, the dependent origination. And it begins with ignorance, and it ends with sorrow, lamentation, pain, sadness, and despair. So out of ignorance, and because we still have tanha, we end up being born. That's the simple way of explaining paticca-samuppada. And therefore, as a result of being born, what the Buddha saw was that we age, and of course we get sick and we die, and then there's this whole mass of suffering. And then it's a repeat cycle. So when we try to understand birth to aging, that's the first test in our meditation. The second test is trying to understand sickness, that it is suffering. And then the final test, the ultimate test in every single birth, is when we die, when we experience death, and then what happens next. So when it comes to these tests, the way to look at it and why they are tests is because due to being born again in this present existence, clearly we failed. And none of us like to think of ourselves as failures, but it is a failure because, as Buddha has said, we've transmigrated from life to life to life, and the beginning is not known. So each and every time we've chosen to be born again. And if we are born, then we know that there is aging and death going to happen again. And as a result of that, there is dukkha, the whole mass of suffering in all its different colors and textures. So when you begin to understand that it is a series of tests, then you understand what the meditation is really about. It's about training so you don't fail these tests. So the death one is the ultimate one, but unless you see jara and then vyadhi, then it's very hard to get a pass mark, let alone succeed at the test really, rather than pass mark, but succeed at the test, the ultimate test at the end, because you're intoxicated, deluded with wrong view. So what we've said with aging before is that we're intoxicated with yobana, youth. So if you look at the societies we live in right now, beauty and youth is seen in a particular way. What we are programming on television, what we are seeing in the news, who we hold up as role models and celebrities and the like. And the pressure we feel when we leave our homes to go out, the pressure is real in terms of looking just right. So when it comes to social norms, we follow those, but in our meditation, we're trying to correct our view. And it is quite difficult when you're constantly bombarded with youth and with all the things that are trying to tell you that you must stay useful. And there's many industries, both health and beauty and medical and fashion, that are all compelling you to believe all that. In the movie industry, there's so many industries that are compelling you. And so you have to be quite courageous and persistent, and to make a great deal of effort using much strength, so that in your meditation you're shining the wisdom light. You're using the spiritual faculty of wisdom to really see the truth. So it's not the normal eye faculty or that sort of faculty that you're using. You're really turning on the wisdom faculty. Now in the beginning, when you struggle, it's because the spiritual faculties of conviction, energy, mindfulness, concentration and wisdom are blunt. But as you start to develop your practice, learn more of the Dhamma, and really put what you've learned into practice through your meditation, then you start to sharpen your faculties. And this includes all the Dhamma discussions, all the listening to Dhamma, all the note-taking, all the meditation steps you memorize, all the meditation you do, and the insight that comes with that, the calming and the insight. But a lot of strength is needed to see it, because our conditions and our environment is compelling us in the opposite direction. And if you can admit that, then it's the first step. The second step is then to really examine it. So Buddha, in his definition, talks about the aging of this body, to really look at the graying of the hair, the losing the tightness of the skin, having the sense faculties start to wane, to decline. So the eyesight, the hearing, the taste, the smell, all these senses start to decline. And when it comes to the body, you can examine that very, very clearly, and not in a way that is making it into a disagreeable object in one's mind. And of course it will arise that way. But to look at it with equanimity, to say, I want to see the truth. When it comes to the sense faculties, you go one by one. You see that the eye faculty is declining. And what do we do to fix it? We wear glasses and contact lenses, and we have surgery. But the aging process is still there. With the taste faculty, that is also declining as we age. We need more salt, we need more spices, we need more chili, depending on your culture. But that's how we try and fix the aging of the tongue faculty. And then with hearing, if you speak to an older person, what happens is most people are in denial. They don't want to use even the technology that exists to help them. They'd rather bear with not being able to hear, even though it makes them quite angry. And then you realize, well, the hearing faculty does decline, and there are certain things that we've done in our lives that might have made it worse sooner. Then when it comes to this body, greying hair, the skin not being right, losing our balance, all kinds of things when you really examine it. Like, there's so many things to do with the body, and associated with other faculties as well. But the main thing is that you really start to see how the body starts to bend. It's not so supple, it loses its flexibility and becomes quite difficult. The energy in the body also declines, one is not as strong. And so we often try to fix it by exercising and doing all sorts of things. And to a certain extent there's a functional element to it that it's very helpful. But there's another one where you have the wrong view and you're doing it to the extreme of beauty, of all kinds of stuff that are not helpful because it comes from the wrong view. But you also mask the idea that the body is losing its strength, its vitality, its life force as it ages. But the truth is that it really is. And so you examine each of the sense faculties in this way, even the sense of smell, how it changes. It's probably not so obvious, but it is still happening. And you also examine how we always try to fix it. Whenever we experience sadness, this domanassa, we're always trying to fix it. And technology is such that there are options for all of these things. But the idea in meditation is never to look at how we're fixing it, but actually to look at the fact that due to us trying to fix it, we're obscuring the aging process. So that's something quite important to look at, because an Arya, a noble one, an Arahant, a Buddha, would not try to fix it and would see the futility in trying to fix it. So when it comes to aging, that's something that's really important to look at, to admit that we deny it, and then to really look at it. And then from that place, this is all in meditation, it's because you're wanting to see the truth. Most of the time when it's obscured, it's because it's highly conditioned to obscure it. And at the same time, you can make a very strong intention and adhitthana that you want the truth. And this is a satya adhitthana, and you want to use wisdom to see it. Wisdom is being able to see the elements. Wisdom is being able to see the 32 body parts. Wisdom is being able to see this aging process, and so on and so forth. So it's a fundamental part of kayanupassana. It's the cornerstone of satipatthana. Because satipatthana is trying to correct the view that we have that is wrong. That it is wrong about this body. That it is wrong in seeing it as nicca. That it is lasting. It is wrong view if we see it as beauty, because aging actually shows that this is not true. And it is wrong if we think that there is value in clinging to it, taking it as mine, and making wrong choices over and over again. So unless you see kayanupassana, you developed a very strong kayanupassana as part of satipatthana, it's very hard to actually see all the rest. And so that is why the Buddha teaches so much on contemplating the body correctly, seeing its downsides, the danger of taking refuge in this precarious and fragile and unlasting thing. And worse is having the wrong view about these bodies, whether they are gross bodies or whether they're very subtle or fine bodies in different realms. And so when you see that, you realize in all these other births you chose incorrectly. In all these other births you didn't see jara, you didn't see the aging, you didn't see the sickness, and of course you didn't understand death. And so when you meditate, what becomes very, very strong as a meditation is really when you see this jati to jara, that birth to aging, and you really see the noble wisdom of it. Then the question that comes up, if you take jati to jara, then what is pressing to say that it is nicca, that it is lasting, if you see that aging is actually, it's not lasting, it's subject to change, and ultimately to death? So it's very important to actually think about that. If it's jati to jara, birth to aging, how can we take it as nicca? And what happens is you see that atta, the sense of me and mine, is the one that is pressing it, pushing it towards nicca, putting a support there to say there's something valuable there and it does last. And it's a total lie. It's a deception. Because if you see birth to aging, you see aging as dukkha, how can it be nicca? How can it be lasting? And that is a very powerful insight when you truly see it in your meditation. And then the question that you ask is that if it's nicca, why are you assigning value to kabalinkara hara? Why are you assigning value to the physical nutriment? So this is really talking about rupa. Rupa, that is the nutriment in physical form. So when it comes to the physical form, whether they're gross or subtle, so in these different realms, these bodies exist as a physical nutriment in either gross or subtle forms. So if you place value, if you take delight in kabalinkara hara, and you welcome it and you remain holding, then these are the homes that we create after death. That if we see physical form as the physical nutriment, kabalinkara hara, when we're desperate at the point of having passed away, we want to pick another home, another body. And depending on our karma, depending on our view, depending on what has happened, then we choose some kind of kapalinkara ahara. Because we still thought that it is nicca, that it is lasting, it's worth taking as me and mine, and it's lasting. And we failed to see that jati jara. So that's why it's very important. So physical nutriment is all these bodies that we can create. And when we take delight and we have this craving for another body, and we haven't seen these other dhammas, then we choose it incorrectly. Now, if you see jati to jara, this link, if you see that, then what you say to yourself is, it's anicca, it's not lasting, it's subject to change, vipranama dukkha. And for that reason, you start to see, why am I valuing kapalinkara ahara? There is no kapalinkara ahara. There is no physical nutriment of value. I don't want the physical nutriment, is what really arises when you see this truth. So it's very deep Dhamma when you've penetrated this. And always remember, the Arahant, the Buddhas, they don't try to fix this. In this whole concoction, when you see this meditation, what you're realizing is you can't fix this. And every birth that we've had, we've thought that we can try and fix this. So most of us in the meditation, we're focusing on the mundane day-to-day things to try and fix. That's our first tip, to say it's not fixable. Whatever we try and fix, it always breaks down, whether it's a car, a computer, a phone, even people in our lives. When relationships decay, when things go wrong, even their aging process, we can't fix it. And so that gives us a hint to what we've tried to do from lifetime to lifetime in a bigger sense, the bigger predicament. We can't fix this, but every time we've chosen at the point of death, in our minds we say we can fix it, we'll just get another body. But that body, whether it's gross or subtle, is subject to aging, subject to sickness, subject to death, in any of these realms. And if you choose unwisely, then the whole mass of suffering again, over and over and over again. Buddha is telling us this, to look at it. So when you develop this meditation, and that's so powerful, you realize, no more. But it takes some effort to actually see this in your own meditation. You can't receive it from just the words. One has to see it as real insight for yourself. And one can do that, it is possible. When you actually experience this sequence of knowing that, basically satipatthana, that you see the jati jara, and because of that you see the futility of atta trying to convince and compel that there is nicca, and they're supporting each other. Atta wants to exist. Atta says it's nicca, and so they're supporting each other. You're holding that up for yourself, this wrong view. But when you correct it because you've seen jati jara, then you understand that this kapalinkara ahara, this physical nutriment, it is not of value. It's also subject to aging in any of these realms. And that's really the real establishment of mindfulness. And so when it comes to the ultimate test, you don't choose unwisely. If you do this meditation well, then thinking stops really. You go to dukkha nirodha. And the mind goes from very narrow to very expansive. And where it really is apparent is the equanimity. It's an equanimity that doesn't budge. There's an evenness in the mind that does not budge. So this question is a very valuable one for all of us. And a very strong thing that comes out of the meditation is that you can't fix this. You've never been able to fix it as much as you keep being reborn to fix it, thinking that you can fix it. And so where you end up now is really to say, the Arahants, they don't try and fix this. They understand from wisdom, the spiritual faculty of wisdom is very strong in them. And the Buddhas. And so when domanassa arises, when the sadness arises because of aging, because of sickness, because of death, then you don't try and fix the domanassa. You don't try and fix the sadness, the mental pain. You go back to the truth and you understand. And so you make very wise choices for the rest of your life. So leave the answer there. Blessings of the Triple Gem, wishing you all well. Teruan Saranai.